Good day, people. It's time to talk about the Time album. I promised you that a few weeks ago. Haven't got around to doing one of these for a little while. I've been a little busy, I suppose, in different aspects. And I thought it was time to talk about time. And I'm going to be a bit tricky here. Well, not tricky. Doing this for fun, really. See how long this takes, this video. Let's use time. Let's talk about time. Right, where to begin? Well, you won't know this, but I started videoing this, got about halfway through talking about this a minute ago, and then someone phoned me and stopped the video completely. And I don't like videos like that. I like to do the whole shoot all the way through. So yeah, rudely interrupted, and I haven't got a clue if I can talk about this album exactly as I was originally talking about this album. As I said before, these are totally unscripted. I'm saying it as I go. Not making anything up, it's all using my memory and giving you an insight into the album and how it came about. So the album Time came about because one of my favourite groups is Tangerine Dream. Most of you probably know that. They've inspired me, they've given me admiration for the kind of music, lots of discoveries really, and what I mainly feel that that type of music is, if you haven't discovered it before or haven't listened to it before, it's why I classify as mind music. It's music that takes you places within yourself, you know, ideal in some ways if you've got time to lay down and listen to an album, just to close your eyes and let that music take you somewhere. It will conjure up images in your mind. And you'll find yourself in deserts or flying in the sky and all sorts of things. It's rather bizarre. So when you talk about music, or for the folk who don't really appreciate or understand music too well, or don't realise that music can elevate you to another level, then I certainly recommend you go listen to this kind of music and do exactly what I say. Though I don't like to tell people what to do, but it is extremely frustrating that their music is sort of underwhelmed by a lot of people who either perhaps don't understand it or perhaps they just don't want to go into these places. But I truly think that if you go on a roller coaster ride that's not going to cost you any money and means that you can be in your home still, you know, without going anywhere, then why not? You know, quite literally. You'd have to come to me or some Tangerine Dream aficionado as such to get the right albums to choose. You know, you can't do them certainly with the latter albums. When I say the latter albums, where they're moving at the moment is absolutely fine. It's a sort of semi-return to where they were. But there were some albums, perhaps during the 90s, early 2000s, that weren't built and constructed the same way as the early albums. And there's contentions within Tangerine Dream groups actually. Some love the old albums, and I certainly do, and some can't stand the new ones. But you know, I believe in the thick and thin, and any band, any artist is usually trying to evolve. And if you've been supporting them, why would you just give up supporting them? Okay, there's you know, it can be like a train journey. Maybe you've just reached your destination and it's time to climb off board. But you know, if that train is still going, you know, it's and you've got time, then why not follow it or carry on? So getting to the point, which I don't often do, I decided that after the Horror Show album was done, I just felt, as per usual, I had more music to carry on with and do, and wondered what direction I was going to go into next. And I had this kind of, I won't say yearning, but I had this, I don't know, feeling that I wanted to at least attempt to see if it was possible to do a track that lasted 20 plus minutes. Because Tangerine Dream in the past did, you know, their early albums had a part 1, part 2, and on both sides there was these 20 plus minute tracks that just meandered and went on and changed and altered, and you know, amazing, you know, absolutely amazing. And I wondered how difficult it was. Well, it's extremely difficult. It's absolutely very, very difficult to do something like that. So again, it's not. If you were comparing your music genre, I mean, to knock up something techno or I don't know, even a pop track or whatever, by comparison to something like this, yeah, I mean, then people have got it easy. You know, there's not much construction going on sometimes in the simple, easy music. But to create something like a beast, like these kind of things, yeah. And you're wondering why you started. But I can't. You know, once I'm embarking on something, I won't stop. That's the kind of person I am. You know, it's a dog with a bone, if you like. You know, why start a project and you can't finish it? You know, you had the intention to do something. Yes, it's driving you mad, or you're finding it difficult. But you know, you may have got 25% through, halfway through. Are you just going to give up? You know, it's it's a failure in some senses, and I wasn't going to do that. And sort of the loss of ambition in work over time um, meant that I channeled the energy I had to you know, not ambitious, no ambition, a different word really. It's trouble when you're going to do these videos on the fly and you've got problems with your memory. You're not going to remember all the words you want to use, or they're not going to come to you for some reason. But as I say, the channeling of my energy meant I had to focus and keep this one going. It was the alternative to ambition. So when I started this album, the first track was actually part 2 of this album, and I'll explain why. The procedure and the going through the track, which is part 2, sounded very like Tangerine Dream, and I didn't want to do that because that meant I was imitating. However, of course, as you know, if you listen to this album, that track remains, and it obviously still sounds that kind of way. But I couldn't have the album starting with a track that sounded like that, because well, I just don't know. I just don't like imitating people. But it seemed to me that if you were going to do a track like this, you almost couldn't help yourself to do that. So that was very interesting in that respect. But as that track continued, of course, obviously it went off in different ways, and the elements of my usual trademark music came about and popped in, and there's a lot of popping in and popping out of variations and themes within that particular track. In some ways, there are so many elements of some of well, that track and the first part 1 as it stands now, that it would be lovely to take extracts out of them particular pieces of music and have built around them, so there were standalone sections within it. So it goes to show also that you can make an album with the intentions I did with these very long tracks, and you have sections in them that you think, gee, that would have been a great track on its own, but because it had to move from one direction to another, that was the purpose of the whole track, I suppose, to tell a story and come back to that mind music type thing. It didn't have long to stay on one particular piece, and it sort of drew comparisons also when I was doing this, not just to Tangerine Dream but to Mike Oldfield, because Mike Oldfield would obviously, you know, going back to Tubular Bells and these early albums, he would sit there, you know, with one instrument at one time, you know, building his music in this manner. So it was really nice reflections of how these people worked, and obviously how difficult it was, I suppose. So, you know, obviously getting the album finished was amazing. You know, to complete something that was such a task, and a task that I'd put upon myself. You know, to say no one applies pressure, no one puts a deadline. All these things are my own. You know, the challenges I receive in life are you know, are ones I put there myself. You know, I go seeking these things and giving myself grief and headaches and all sorts of things. And you know, the commitment I put into this is You know, I look back, I just don't know, I don't even know sometimes how I do this. I honestly don't, but I was in a zone at this particular moment in time. And remember, it hadn't stopped, you know, because I knew the moment I'd finish this album, as an example, there'd be another one, and I'd go through the same process yet once more, doing exactly the same thing. I couldn't get off this. I really honestly couldn't get off this, my own journey. Um, so that's part one and part two per se, because obviously I did that, but part one, which was track two, as I say, I swapped them around, had to be different. It just had to be a different track, you know, and knowing it was going to be the first track, you know, knowing full well that I could not, for whatever reason, use track two as the first track, I had to dig even deeper, I suppose. Uh, and I did. I really found myself in some really good areas working with this. But you know, the repetition of listening to these things, and because they were so huge, you know, I don't know how many times I listened to them, um, and to think of the length and the length they became, you know, it's just ludicrous. So you know, the amount of work and effort I put on. Anyway, so the challenge was to do a part one and part two, and no doubt most people who've come across the album time will know it's got 8 parts. So it's like, well, why is there 8 parts when you only intended to do 2 parts? And that was the thing. I think it was quite a big relief, obviously, to get off my chest that I'd actually managed to complete and do this, and I was really, really happy with the outcome. Um, but I think it was the part one and the part two elements that actually thought, hang on a minute, Jean-Michel Jarre, he does these oxygens and equinoxes, etc., and he does part ones to God knows how many parts. And now I was like in this other world thinking, well, I wonder if you could do a gigantic Jean-Michel Jarre type thing where you know you've got the cross platform of all these artists that you have big respect for, have lots of appreciation for, and I don't know, sort of nod your head, you know, tip your hat, etc., or whatever, to these people, and say, you know, I understand the work ethic and the work you put into these massive projects, and I don't know if the time I'm spending on these is anything like the time you know, these people have spent, longer, smaller. I don't know. You know, these things never occurred. So just, you know, I was still in my sort of floundering first year as such of coming to terms with doing this and getting involved in all this stuff. So it was like, you know, why put such big projects and things on me? I don't know. I honestly don't know, but I did. So this is something I don't and won't know again because my memory don't work like that. It just don't. But I think the order of part 3 to part 8 did go in that structure. I think it did actually go in that order because now I had a concept. I finally had this other thought process going on and how I was going to move forward. I didn't need now to make another 20+ minute track either. You know, that was not important. That wasn't the. If I was going to embark upon making parts, there certainly wasn't going to be a need because I'd done what I intended to do. You know, I'd got through that phase. So part 3 through to part 8 was just going to be, well, where are we going to go with this? And then I started to do what I did with other concept albums in the past. I started coming up with names and elements of time, trying to induce or think about what time means. Time means a hell of a lot. You know, from my perspective, it's the most important commodity we have. It's the one that we do actually run out of. You know, the one we don't have that can last forever or build to whatever. You know, it's against us all the time, as you can see. You know, I started this video a little while back, and suddenly, you know, the minutes are digging in. You know, we've got to understand the concept of time and what we're doing with it. It's very, very important. So the idea of well, I don't know, probably like these projects themselves, was to use the time properly and appropriately. I won't go into, you know, talking about time per se. I'm sure we all understand time, but I think it is a very important thing. And also, just curiously, it was really extremely funny to find out that as much as I knew that Tangerine Dream had made the album Zeit because I bought it many years ago, I never knew what Zeit meant. And then to discover that the album actually meant time was even funnier to some extent. Because thinking, oh my God, I'm trying to sort of not imitate or do something, and there you go. Sort of fell into the trap, or what was it, a Freudian slip? Who knows? I'll never know. So, yeah, time warp. I mean, suddenly the ideas of the sci-fi programs I was watching when I was young, these kind of things, that it was really sort of had a grasp, and I really sort of thought this album is futuristic for sure. It has to be. It's got to be. So part 3, Time Warp, really had to have the essence of that, and didn't have to be the length, and it certainly wasn't. So Time Warp was as it was, and again I think I managed to make a sort of audible visual of what a time warp would be. Part 4, Time to Reflect, that was me sort of doing a Depeche Mode typey thing. They did a song, It Doesn't Matter, on Some Great Reward album, and they followed that up with It Doesn't Matter 2, sequel as such, on... Hang on a minute, sorry, I'm going to have to shut the door. Just, there's a little bit of background noise there that I think you may be picking up, and I don't want that obviously in the video, and I don't want to have to re-record this for the umpteenth time. You know, maybe today's just going to be a challenge in its own right to get this video produced. I don't know. So subsequently, coming back to Time to Reflect, yeah, I sort of, I did imitate as such a sequel track. There's a track called Time to Reflect, of course, on my Great Distraction album, the first album, and so I was kind of going back to thinking, hang on a minute, can I, that name makes a lot of sense, and it's a bit comedic, so is it worth sort of throwing in something like that? And so it was just a variation of the 2, really, the number 2 opposed to TO, and making a nice, gentle, relaxed kind of track that would just simmer things down a little, because there's a lot of edginess within the album, and it just needed, this was going to be the middle of the album now, in theory, with parts, though it was much further because of the 2 20-minute tracks at the beginning, yeah, I think it's a nice, gentle, meandering track that just sort of puts a nice calming effect to the album. And then, of course, then we go to part 5. So after I've calmed you down as such, suddenly I've gone mental with a track. I have a supporter on Twitter as an example, and they saw the video and they heard the track, and they just said, "There's no way I can promote that," because I think I'd blown their mind in some ways. But if you're going to do a track called Time Tunnel, and of course there was a reference to an early film short TV program I was watching when I was young. It was this mad sci-fi thing where people were going through this time tunnel, disappearing and coming out the other end in a different time. It's not going to be straightforward, is it? It's not going to be straightforward and easy. What's the point of titling something and then not sort of carrying it out? I don't know. So it was meant to be as it was, just something totally off the wall. It doesn't really fit the album at all in some ways. It's just, but it does. It really does have its place. But it was like I enjoyed creating it, but whether or not I look back and think, am I proud of that track? I don't know. I can't really explain it. It's got its place. It has to live on this album. It just has to. It does have its place. And I don't know how many people have actually listened to the album from beginning to end, because it is a large album, but it really does simulate that journey I was kind of expecting. But as you can probably tell, I had some fun with this track 5, whereby like track 6 with Time Slip, it's sort of very similar-ish to the Time Warp number 3, but maybe there's a reason to sort of return at that point. Again, Jarre, he sometimes did with his Equinox Oxygen. He weren't going from part 1 to part 2, part 3, etc., and they were all different. you'll listen to parts 4 and part 6 of that, and there's something about it that sounds similar-ish, So I think he works well. He obviously wanted to do something that sounded different and not be the same, but he wanted to kind of keep it together. So I think I had an element there within Time Slip, and I did start to learn more about what I was doing and how I was affecting the mind, if you like, within that track, both with Time Warp and Time Slip, because I was doing some things I hadn't done before, and I won't reveal, but they made you want to listen to the track in certain places. Variations on the hook process of a piece of music. Now, Time Warp Part 7, it's like it really wasn't pre-planned to do such a track, such another big, awesome track. But personally, do I like that track? I love that track. I love it. I mean, I love the whole album. But if I want to listen to a condensed version of the album, then I just might just tune into Part 7, because it just sort of has all the elements of what I wanted. And the only reason really, in some ways, that it runs on so long is because of the way the music went. It just couldn't not be what it was. It just had to be what it was. I'll elaborate on a secret, I suppose, to some extent, that Part 7 was going to be Part 7 and Part 8, somewhere mid between. There's a section where the music changes, and I was having extreme trouble to sort of do that thing where you latch on. So the album is, I don't know, the tracks join. There is a joiner, and I just somehow couldn't do it. When I was breaking the 2 tracks down, the sound levels were changing too drastically. So you couldn't come from 7 to 8 and not notice the sound variation. So in the end, I just had to continue with the join as it was and think, okay, this remains as one full track. And by that time, maybe, I mean, this was several months now, maybe it was actually sending me mad, the album, because it was like, what are you doing? Why are you, why this round number of 8? You could finish here at 7, for instance. The album is well, it's gone way past where you ever thought it was going to go. So, what is occurring? But I'd looked at the titles yet again, and I thought, well, if you're going to have a time war, it moves into, it's got to move into a crescendo. It's got to move into something else, and hence Time Bomb. And again, Time Bomb, playing around with sounds and interesting musical things. I just create this wonderful feeling of, well, not wonderful because I like positivity rather than negativity, but wonderful feeling of bombs dropping and like this war obviously taking place, and you're right in the thick of it. I mean, that's how the end of this album is. It's just it's full on. You're being attacked. I don't know, everything, but not in your usual typical sense. Not like, the idea was still to emphasise that this was relating to time and maybe more sci-fi, not actual your traditional wars. This was dimension wars, etc. Anyway, I completed it, finished it, and sort of like I'm laughing because it's just I don't know, I think I probably would have been euphoric at the time to think I finally achieved what I set out to achieve, but beyond setting out what I achieved or wanted to achieve, there's no doubt it's the biggest project I've ever worked on and I'm ever going to work on. I'm just not going to do that again. It wasn't hell. It wasn't, it was just a lot of work that I just had no idea why I was doing what I was doing, but truly believe that I've created some sort of work of art in some respects. And if you haven't heard it, then do so if you can. Now, just before I close, I will obviously emphasise that the next album it's not official, the next album, because again there was 2 albums that came out, but they came out in different they come out in a different order, and I'll explain that on the next studio talk. But I did embark, obviously, in the future on an album called Space, and I will obviously talk about that in some length and detail on another studio talk. But altogether, the album's Time and Space, I have decided, will become a trilogy set, and I have started an album, possibly last year, I think it was, called Dimensions, which is going well. It's going extremely well, actually. It's got some great music on there. Again, don't know where it's come from, and it's a sort of it's not space and it's not time, but it has some sort of thread that certainly we'd understand it would link it, because where my mind goes when I'm doing these things, I haven't a clue, but I certainly get the feeling that they join, even though they don't sound the same. But what would be the purpose of making them sound the same? So yeah, I can officially say that come next year, the Dimensions album will complete this trilogy set and trilogy album. So sorry about the time. I never know how long I'm going to ramble for, never know how long I'm going to talk for, background noise, etc. And yeah, I think I've managed to complete this video in one set. So thank you very much for tuning in yet again. I hope it opens up a little bit of information towards this album, and hope to catch you soon on the next chat. Thanks very much for tuning in then. Bye bye.